Next, we are going to have Kevin. He is a certified healing food specialist. I personally met with him before, and we've talked about food and everything great. He is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to understanding food and how to source food locally from New Jersey farmers, especially, and just cultivating a sustainable lifestyle overall. So, Kevin, if you will please jump on here and share all of your wonderful information.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Everything coming through? All right. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a long time waiting. I was so eager to do that. The event. Is Sarah still talking? Oh. I've been so eager to do this. Ideally, would have been in person, but yeah. So as she said, Sarah said, I'm into getting people connected to local food sources in the area. Mostly farm fresh options, also some great markets or sort of mom and pop groceries and smaller shops in the area that are pulling more and more from the region to supply their food and their customers. So I'm going to get into a few ways that are available to us in the area here. I'm based in Neptune City, and over the past 10 plus years, I've been sourcing directly from farms in every place I've lived along the way, Jersey City, out in outside of Philly, and then back here to the shore. And everywhere I go, I'm able to locate great options that fit what I'm looking for in terms of quality, in terms of nutrient density, and ideally the more traditional ways of creating food and less of the sort of industrialized options. So we consider one great option around here is joining up with a buying club, and what that is an organization that works as a go-between between really traditional farmers that have really kept it simple and don't use a lot of computers or technology on the farm, and then connecting them with consumers that can order their food online on a regular basis, either weekly or bi-weekly, for pickup or for home delivery to come right to the house. And that's been what we've seen in the last few months, obviously, is a huge surge in the interest in home delivered food. So we've been more than happy to step up our efforts, and the farms have been edging up production to meet the new needs, and still staying with their traditional practices and not sacrificing quality to be able to do that. And that's what we love about smaller farms that perhaps aren't even big enough to qualify for and justify an organic certification. We think of them as kind of beyond organic, and they meet the standards that are put forth by a foundation that I work with, called the Weston A. Price Foundation, and that's at westonaprice.org. If you'd like to see more information on our philosophy towards food creation and getting it around to people, as well as all the wonderful studies of Dr. Price, who traveled the world back many decades ago to study the indigenous cultures of the world, see how they were eating and living, and contrasting that to what was beginning to be the kind of the industrial era in the 20s and 30s, and how that changed the food supply drastically, and what were the ramifications of some of our modern creations in the food world. So Weston Price Foundation is aimed at getting us back to traditional ways in terms of how we eat, how we source, and how we do our self-care and even our mental state. The Weston Price Foundation is a nonprofit organization that seeks to disseminate the research of nutrition pioneer Dr. Weston Price, who studies isolated the non-industrialized peoples of the world and established the parameters for human health and determined their optimum characteristics of their diets and how they lived. So it's fascinating research if you want to dive into that ever. It's what really woke me up to pay more attention to how I was what I was eating, and then where it was coming from, how that was created, and the wonderful benefits you start to get when you get more local. Along the way, just going through kind of my timeline, and back in like about 2010, we were starting to take on an actual delivery service for one of the traditional farmers that was delivering to the area. So I started moved beyond a customer at that point and became kind of getting my boots on the ground with the food movement. And along the way, we got certified as healing food specialists and took on more work with Weston A. Price Foundation. We attended some great marches and activist events along the way, and some great conferences to really bolster our knowledge as we went on the journey. And when I say we, it's Jessica and her mom, Roberta, who we all eventually designed a course called the Vibrant Health Series that was done at Bergen Community. So, and that was allowing us to finally get some of this great knowledge out to folks and get them started with local food sourcing. In 2013, I was fortunate to give a TEDx talk on the human microbiome. And I feel that that really does tie in with these local farms, because what we're looking to do is get probiotic-rich foods as directly as we can without any real intervention, any irradiation, pasteurization, things like that, that actually then take away all those living components that we're really going for. So as we learned more about probiotics and the benefits of enriching your gut health with those traditional foods, it became really apparent that it was harder and harder to find those in any kind of a market, or at least of any real potency. So, got off probiotic pills and moved into really getting directly from the food, which is far more beneficial. So the TEDx talk is called Making Friends with Your Microbes. It's up there, from TEDx Jersey City in 2013. Attended some great seminars on rewilding as well along the way, which is a great mindset to sort of deal with our modern Babylon society and the strains it can put on you, and kind of tapping into your deeper human self. So it worked really nicely with all the nutrition information based on indigenous cultures. Now you can start to also, with the rewilding world, adopt a mindset around why you're, going to these lengths to create your own mouthwash out of sea salt and essential oils, and, buying a locally made deodorant, and, just supporting all the little village that is really around you. I think of the supporters of this food system as kind of a sleeping giant right now, because what happened was when the big systems around us a few months back began to really teeter, food supplies looked a little dicey, every kind of supply really. Our farmers stepped it up, and we had an uninterrupted great supply of food, and they're still enjoying a real surge of business as more and more people were forced to look into different kinds of food options, and not even really wanted to leave the house to get them. So this, I also would consider this sort of an open call for more drivers, more site hosts, anybody who wants to really get involved with an amazing local food system that's grown from real people, no corporations, over a few decades now, getting better and better and more gently technologically advanced, being able to order online. Which is wonderful. I think that it's really handy to be able to order your food, see it kind of all laid out, see where you're at budget-wise, and make decisions very easily on what to add in, what to take away. You get a good sense versus, the olden days of wandering around the aisles, which may be fading into the distant past soon, but, at least compared to the old days of wandering the aisles with your list and comparing labels, I think it really, ordering directly from farms has really so many benefits. If we want to tie in sustainability with that piece, ordering directly really does cut down on food waste. It cuts down on that need to overproduce and sort of fill your farm stand with lots and lots of produce that at the end of the day you're going to pack up, and half of it gets tossed. A lot of it maybe they can compost and things, but there certainly is a lot of food waste involved with trying to fluff up a marketplace scene, of whether it's an outdoor farmers market or an indoor brick and mortar kind of market. That's, we've noticed over the past months how the shelves looking so bare is a very ominous feeling. So it's clear that markets really like to have this sense of abundance, and it takes a lot of overproduction to make that happen, really. And having worked in the field in various ways, being behind juice bars and working in markets that were, doing their best to do the right things, that they can still fall short in a lot of ways, and food waste is one. So this direct ordering, allowing farmers to prepare the order over the few days after you place your order till when it's delivered is great, because they don't need to waste anything. They know what they're up against and deliver exactly what you need and only what you need without all the frills. I find myself eating every last crumb of this food, just appreciating how, having a face behind the food, knowing the farmers, calling them up, having chats with them and asking them about any practices that you may have concern about. And they're very honest, and they love to talk about what they do, what they're so good at doing. I really think farmers are some of the most amazing and resilient people out there. And I think it's because of their contact with the earth and, wildlife, the environment. It's a win-win for everybody when you can get direct. It's a family to family feeding operation in a sense, and sourcing operation. It really simplifies the food chain, so farmers can really get a fair price. They get more out of every food dollar that you give them. In the major food systems, farmers only get maybe 10 to 20% of that food dollar. So 20 cents goes to the farmer, 80 cents goes to designers, marketers, CEOs, trucks, trains, planes, automobiles, the whole deal. So it really is a beautifully elegant system to just be able to order and receive with a total of one truck between you. And some people even go directly to the farms. There's great farms here in Jersey. A lot of the staples that I go for are coming from the Lancaster area farm belt in Pennsylvania. So still within 200, 300 miles, and that's the local food shed. And just because Pennsylvania is so close and it's such a rich farmland, I grew up out there and enjoyed the company of all the Amish and the Mennonites as I grew up, and loved to watch them work. So, consumers then are benefiting from like highest quality food, so fresh, and it's a reasonable price. It's the price that food really deserves to, I think, be purchased at, versus artificial inflation of price due to basically the economies of scale and just our system of bringing in produce and things that we can grow within 100 miles and bringing that stuff in from South America and places around the globe. It always makes my head scratch how far food moves around when it can be achieved locally. Reduces a lot of fuel for that very reason. Moving this stuff around so much reduces a lot of unnecessary packaging and waste in that regard as well. The food can just come in a simple glass container or simple packaging without all the frills. It decentralizes the food system and starts to get money flowing back in our communities and creating microeconomies. I think that's going to be an important thing to look at as the landscapes are shifting right now, economically, politically. It just felt good this whole time to know I have a food supply, and I go and fetch my own spring water, and I'm resourceful, and I can help you become very resourceful as well. If you want to get in touch, and I can send you the resource list of all the farms and all the great little hidden gems around here. So I can start wrapping up if we're getting at like a 13-ish minute mark. Does anybody want to jump in with questions, or I can continue with some parting thoughts?
We do have a couple questions from Derek. He's asking, how much do you think people in the U.S.'s mental and physical health are connected to what they eat?
Well, so as a healing food specialist, I would say like major connections. What we learned about when learning about the microbiome is just how many neurons are going on in our gut. And it's second only to the neurons up in this portion of the brain. And I personally have come to see the brain as almost a jellyfish. Up here is the logical parts and the reasoning, and then down through the vagus nerve and all the nervous, the branches of the nervous system into the gut. That is like a whole nother brain of its own, or at least the lower half of the brain, something that we don't really recognize as the brain. But yeah, definitely healing the gut can really drastically and pretty quickly reduce a lot of these disorders. So I'm happy to send you more info on that. I think there's also a mentality around, like a mindset around that we're going to have to definitely all be aware of as well. And that's why I like the rewilding. It helps me feel human again, and it helps me tap into, I think, instincts and even abilities or even healing capabilities that were innate otherwise and left kind of dormant. So it's cool to wake up to all this stuff, and happy to help you on your journey.
All right. Let's see. We wanted to know, what is a food shed?
Food shed is a term that means like a watershed, being like, how far out does water trickle down to this common river? And that is the Delaware River watershed, let's say, from where all that. So it's almost the reverse with food. The food shed is how far that locally produced food can make it without becoming more of a commodity food, more of an edible bargaining chip for larger corporations that are mostly disconnected from how the food is made and the people making it. So.
And then another definition, what do you mean by rewilding?
So rewilding was coined by people like Arthur Haynes and Daniel Vitalis, so I really recommend following. They've got some great podcasts called Rewild Yourself. Arthur Haynes is like ancestral wisdom expert and mentored Daniel Vitalis into developing this sort of field of rewilding, which is about tapping into your more instinctual natures, recognizing human domestication and all the sort of detrimental qualities associated with home-based life, and not the way our indigenous cultures and the more natural people of the world live at one with their environment. So it hints at the world of sort of permaculture, where we're really working with the land as we create food, and just how we think about and tread upon the earth around us. So it was really woven in nicely with all the microbiome studies and the indigenous culture studies. It just gave almost not a religion, but a mentality, a focus around all of this knowledge that I'm just constantly immersing myself in.
All right, wonderful. And then let's see. I don't think you answered this one yet. What farms can we order from near Asbury?
So that's something I'll get into just sort of more privately. But what we do, being a Weston A. Price Foundation chapter leader, I keep a running list, and I'm always looking for more recommendations from people along the way to add in. That's how we build these. So I can forward you the PDF that has all the ones that I'm aware of thus far and always exploring. Basically, what you do is you sign up with the farm directly. Nowadays, these farms have somebody kind of working a website for them, or they're doing it themselves in some cases. And you become, a member, or at least set up an account and begin ordering. Sometimes, every farm, that's why I like to talk to people about this stuff, because each farm kind of has its ins and outs. Sometimes there is a membership fee, sometimes it's free, sometimes you need a referral, sometimes it's we try to keep things secure and keep the farmers safe and insulated from the big bad world out there. So that's something I'm happy to email you, like a whole list of websites instead of just one. But for anybody even looking ahead and wider than just the area, westonaprice.org, WESTONAPRISE.org, westonaprice.org is, you can click find a chapter leader, and that's like finding somebody like me in wherever you're traveling. And we have chapter leaders plopped all over the country and all over the world, growing and growing to keep running lists of great farms and cool resources for you to, do your organic living journey. So yeah, I'd be happy to. I just don't want to mention too much publicly. We keep those lists; they're like very sacred. So